serving the Republic of the Philippines for more than 75 years. Ito po ang Presidential Broadcast Service.
From the Presidential Palace, Manila, Dateline Malacañang.
Good day, this is Dateline Malacañang. Here are today's Palace top stories. President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. on Tuesday said the death of Department of Migrant Workers or DMW Secretary Susan Toots Ople is a great loss to the Philippines. The president made the reaction on the sidelines of his activity in Santa Rosa, Laguna.
It's a very, very sad news. I have lost a friend. The Philippines has lost a friend. Secretary Toots is a special person. With a deep compassion, really, for the people that she had to care for, namely the migrant workers. And she was very, very. It's a big loss. Ang galing-galing ni Secretary Toots. She very much followed in the tradition of Gablas of excellence, of compassion. It is a great loss for all of us.
In a statement, the DMW announced that Secretary Ople died at around 1 p.m. on Tuesday, surrounded by her family and loved ones. The DMW also asked for prayers for the eternal repose of Secretary Ople's soul, as well as for her family. President Marcos appointed Ople to head the newest department of the government at the start of his administration. A staunch advocate of overseas Filipino workers or OFWs' rights, Ople founded the Blas Ople Policy Center or BOPC, named after his father, which assists distressed OFWs in various parts of the world. The elder Ople served as labor chief during the administration of Marcos Sr. She also headed the Blas F. Ople Policy and Training Institute, a non-profit organization that is actively involved in labor and migration issues. Last July 25, DMW announced that Secretary Ople is taking a 2-week wellness leave following the consecutive passing of her older brothers, former Hagonoy Bulacan Mayor Felix Toti Ople and former journalist Blas F. Ople Jr., both due to lung cancer. Secretary Ople said she needed time to grieve, be with her family, as well as look after her own wellness. In February 2020, she underwent surgery for stage 2 breast cancer. Meanwhile, several officials and officers expressed grief on the passing of Secretary Ople. In a statement, Philippine Ambassador to the United Kingdom, Teodoro Locsin Jr., paid tribute to Secretary Ople, describing her as a staunch supporter of labor rights and was the best thing that happened to migrant workers. Ambassador Locsin recalled how Secretary Ople tirelessly worked on behalf of overseas Filipino workers with or without office or means in the past. He said Secretary Ople came from a short dynasty of the best and hailed her for continuing the work of her father, one of the framers of the 1987 Philippine Constitution left. House Speaker Ferdinand Martin Romualdez likewise mourned Ople's death, saying migrant workers have lost a great champion with her passing. In a separate statement, other House members expressed their sadness over the passing of the DMW Secretary. The chairperson of the House Committee on Overseas Workers Affairs and Kabayan Party List Representative Ron Sada said Secretary Ople's passion in promoting and protecting the welfare of every Filipino migrant worker is really appreciated and will be greatly missed. ACT-CIS Party List Representative Jocelyn Tulfo said Secretary Ople's commitment, passion, and dedication in serving the country, her fellow Filipinos, and protecting OFWs is truly remarkable and have touched the lives of many. Meanwhile, Senate President Juan Miguel Zubiri describes Secretary Ople as a superwoman with a huge heart for the people. Senate Majority Leader Joel Villanueva said the death of Secretary Ople is not only a loss of the family or of Bulacan, their home province, but of the entire nation. Senate Minority Leader Aquilino Pimentel III remembered Secretary Ople for demonstrating unwavering commitment to OFWs, while Senator Francis Escudero said it will be hard to fill the big void left by Ople, who was a good or goddaughter of his father, former Agriculture Chief and Sorsogon Congressman Salvador Escudero. The Chancelleries of Canada and the European Union or EU in the Philippines also extended their sympathies to the late DMW Secretary's family. Under Ople's leadership at DMW, the Canadian Embassy in Manila said Ottawa and Manila were able to actively discuss ways to collaborate closely in protecting overseas Filipino workers. EU Ambassador to the Philippines Luc Veron meanwhile remembered Secretary Ople for working tirelessly to ensure the safety and security of overseas Filipino workers worldwide. He also sent his condolences to Secretary Ople's bereaved family.
Dateline Malacañang.
In our news, Budget Secretary Amena Pangandaman said President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. has ordered the consolidation of the proposed amendments to the Decades-Old Republic Act or RA 9184 or the Government Procurement Reform Act or GPRA. President Marcos gave the directive in a sectoral meeting at Malacañang Palace with cabinet officials, including Secretary Pangandaman. In a palace briefing Tuesday, Secretary Pangandaman said President Marcos directed the cabinet officials to have a consolidated amendment to the existing GPRA that will be presented to House and the Senate.
During our meeting po with the President, we were directed to have a consolidated amendments to the existing GPRA po that we will present to House and the Senate. So, isusulat lang po namin ng maayos ito in a form of an amendment dun sa mga provisions, mga existing provisions, and then we will sit down with the House and Senate counterparts po.
Pangandaman said the specific amendments to the GPRA's existing provisions would likely be released within 2 weeks. Stressing that a lot of amendments will be made, Secretary Pangandaman said the proposed revisions are divided into 6 items, which are innovative procurement methods, efficiency in the procurement process, procurement planning and budgeting, digitalization and innovation, green procurement, and amendments to miscellaneous provisions. Secretary Pangandaman said the proposed amendments aim to address issues that hurt public service delivery and address the underspending of some government agencies.
We have also been hounded by controversies linked to the Philippine procurement system. That's why our President is correct that we need to make government procurement more attuned to our changing times. Procurement affects us every day, not just us in the government, but the Filipino people. Of our total national government budget, up to 25% po dyan is done to procurement. So for this year, our total budget is 5.268 trillion, so it's roughly 1.3 trillion pesos. So it's quite a huge amount. These are the reasons that this reform has become necessary, albeit tedious.
Service or DBM's Executive Director Dennis Santiago said the proposed amendments to GPRA will make the procurement more efficient, noting that a government agency that complies with legal, technical, and financial requirements may carry out a direct acquisition with supplier subject to limitations. Santiago said some of the government agencies are also complaining about the tedious process in the delivery of goods and services. Secretary Pangandaman said rapid technology transformation over the past 2 decades and the pandemic propelled the urgency for digital transactions in the country. During his second State of the Nation address on July 24, President Marcos said enacting a new government procurement law and government auditing code would strengthen the whole of government and whole of society approach, which is deemed as a transformative solution amid the changing times.
Dateline Malacañang.
The Procurement Service, Department of Budget and Management or PSDBM will pilot an e-marketplace under the Philippine Government Electronic Procurement System or PhilJEPS for government procurement of motor vehicles. PSDBM Executive Director Dennis Santiago made the announcement during a palace briefing on Tuesday. PhilJEPS is the electronic commerce service owned and operated by the PSDBM, serving as the central portal for all procurement information and activities of the government.
Marami pong features ang PhilJEPS. Merong virtual store, merong e-catalog, okay? Yung isa pong ipapasok po natin, yung pong tinatawag na e-marketplace. Ano po? Ipapilot po natin yan soon po sa mga motor vehicles. So, ilalagay po natin yung mga sasakyan, kung ano-ano pong brand yan, kung ano-anong klase ng sasakyan.
That there will be a threshold limit by which a procuring entity may purchase through the e-marketplace without the hassle of a long bidding process. Any government entity can buy through e-marketplace as long as the purchases are within the limits set by the DBM or the threshold amount for motor vehicle procurement and if they are compliant to the technical requirement.
So, mangyayari po ito as a feature of the PhilJEPS, and then moving forward, hopefully, mga ibang produkto naman po ang maipapasok sa e-marketplace where procuring entity can directly buy. Ano po, ang mawawala po rito ay yung mahabang proseso ng pagbibid. Okay? Because they will buy directly from the e-marketplace. Ano po? May mga produkto po na ilalagak po doon, coming po sa mga market operators or market suppliers, and then mga procuring entity doon na po bibili.
Santiago said the DBM will set a mechanism for suppliers and products that will qualify for the system. The Budget Department presented to the President during the Cabinet Sectoral Meeting in Malacañang the proposed amendments to Republic Act number 9184 or the Government Procurement Reform Act. The GPRA was envisioned to address the lack of transparency and competition, eliminate collusion, and political interference and lessen delays in the procurement process. The rapid transformation in technology over the past 2 decades and the effects of the pandemic heightened the urgency for digital transformation in the delivery of public services and the conduct of government transactions.
Dateline Malacañang.
Budget Secretary Amena Pangandaman defended on Tuesday the reported 10 billion pesos slash on the 2024 budget of the Department of Health or DOH, saying that is purely congressional initiatives. Secretary Pangandaman told reporters in a press briefing in Malacañang that the reduction in the proposed 2024 budget of the DOH was mostly due to some amendments made by lawmakers.
Karamihan po, yung pagtapyas po ng budget ng DOH, karamihan po kasi doon puro mga amendments ng Congress po. Additional, meaning congressional initiatives po.
The Budget Secretary made the remarks when asked to explain the supposed 10 billion peso cut in the proposed 5.768 trillion peso national budget of the DOH for 2024. Secretary Pangandaman also explained that some adjustments were made to DOH proposed budget for the necessary increase to its Health Facilities Enhancement Program or HFEP and medical assistance for indigent patients or MAIP among others. The adjustments are non-recurring in nature according to Secretary Pangandaman.
Dateline Malacañang.
President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. on Tuesday received 35 vehicle units donated by Toyota Motor Philippines or TMP in a ceremonial turnover at the Toyota Special Economic Zone or TSEZ at the city of Santa Rosa in the province of Laguna. The donation in line with the commemoration of TMP's 35th anniversary included 10 ambulance units and 2 coasters or minibus customized for the Lab for All medical program of the Office of the First Lady. During the ceremonial turnover, Toyota Motor Corporation or TMC chairperson Akio Toyoda handed the keys of the donated vehicles to President Marcos. In his speech, President Marcos hailed TMP's contributions to the Philippines' economic development, saying the country is very lucky to have the car maker at as its partner. President Marcos said he looks forward to a strengthened partnership with Toyota as his administration aims to transform the Philippine economy.
We have always seen Toyota as being an important partner in that in everything in our development in the Philippines, and now especially in these difficult times, these are the partnerships that we think that I am certain will be of benefit not only to the Philippines but also to Toyota and even for our partners in Japan.
Toured the world-class facilities of the country's leading mobility company. He checked the technologies and highly skilled workforce that currently produce TMP's best-selling Vios and Innova models. TMP was incorporated on August 3, 1988 as a joint venture of TMC, GT Capital Holdings Incorporated, and Mitsui & Company Limited. One of the largest automotive companies in the country, TMP has the widest vehicle lineup of 24 Toyota models. It has over 70 dealers nationwide, including high-end Lexus Manila Incorporated for its sales, in distribution, and service centers. TMP's head office and manufacturing plant are located inside the 82-hectare TSEZ, which serves as home to a number of investors performing strategic roles in the manufacture and export of automotive products to the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, Japan, and other parts of the world. The marketing office of TMP is located in Makati City, while the newly inaugurated 32-hectare Batangas Vehicle Center streamlines vehicle handling prior to inter-island transport and ensures promised delivery time and quality for dealers and customers. Today, TMP and the Toyota Group have cumulatively invested 73.7 billion pesos since 2000, paid duties and taxes of 448 billion pesos, and exported 18.76 billion US dollars worth of auto parts and components since 1997. Toyota will also invest around 4.4 billion pesos for the production of the next generation Tamaraw, a utility transport vehicle first introduced in the Philippines in 1976. As of December 2022, TMP has a total of 3,742 personnel, with 1,846 of them on permanent status.
Dateline Malacañang.
Malacañang has announced the appointment of veteran newsman and career government communicator Adolfo Ares Gutierrez as Deputy Director General of the Philippine Information Agency or PIA, an attached agency of the Presidential Communications Office or PCO. President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. appointed Gutierrez to the government's primary developmental communications arm in an order dated August 3, according to the Office of Communications Secretary Cheloy Vilicaria Garafil. He will replace Nicole Josel Managbanag. Before his appointment, he was the head of the Public Affairs and Information Services Office or PISO of Quezon City, which he shepherded into a local government department in 2019. As PISO head from the last term of Mayor Herbert Bautista to the first 3 months of the first term of Mayor Joy Belmonte, Gutierrez revolutionized the information service delivery of the city's Public Information Office or PIO by launching the nation's first LGU-produced weekly online webcast as well as a daily online talk show. He also pushed for the empowerment of LGU PIOs in the government's disaster risk reduction efforts. Before joining government service, Gutierrez was a journalist for more than 30 years and worked as a reporter, editor, news manager, and editorial consultant in print, digital, and online platforms both here and abroad. His journalism career began as a sports writer for the Letran Scroll and the 48th editor-in-chief of the Bedan. While still in college, he joined the defunct Manila Chronicle as a correspondent. He also worked with Malaya, the Journal Group of Publications, Cebu Daily News, the Manila Times, and GMA News Online. He also worked as a sub-editor of the Al Nasir Media and Gulf News, the leading English-language newspaper in the Persian Gulf region in the Middle East. Respected by his peers in media, he was twice elected to the National Directorate of the National Union of Journalists of the Philippines and was past president of the Filipino Press Club in the United Arab Emirates. He was a journalism fellow of the Nihon Shimbun Kyokai, or Japan Newspaper Publishers and Editors Association, where he wrote a paper about Japan's aging society. He holds 2 master's degrees from the Philippine Public Safety College, specializing in public safety administration and crisis and disaster risk management.
Dateline Malacañang.
Department of Social Welfare and Development or DSWD Secretary Rex Gatchalian and Philippine National Volunteer Service Coordinating Agency or PNVSCA Executive Director Donald James Gawe on Tuesday signed a Memorandum of Understanding or MOU to encourage and promote volunteerism in the delivery of social protection programs and services to the people. In a speech after the signing ceremony at DSWD Central Office in Quezon City, Secretary Gatchalian emphasized the importance of time offered by organized citizens in mainstreaming volunteerism across the social welfare and development landscape. He thanked the PNVSCA for leading the promotion and coordination of volunteer programs and services on social protection delivery. The MOU primarily aims to establish a mechanism where volunteer organizations and individuals can be involved in the implementation of social protection programs and services. The DSWD is among the first government agencies that adopted the PNVSCA's Bayanihan Bayan program, the government's volunteer program that encourages volunteerism among Filipinos and enjoins government employees to volunteer service in social, economic, and humanitarian development undertakings in the community. The department is working with volunteer groups and individuals during disaster response, particularly in repacking food packs and in loading and unloading of relief goods, among others.
Dateline Malacañang.
The National Task Force for the West Philippine Sea or NTF-WPS on Tuesday said the resupply mission to the detachment manning the BRP Sierra Madre in Ayungin Shoal has been successful. In a statement, the task force attributed the success of the mission to the efforts of the Armed Forces of the Philippines or AFP and the Philippine Coast Guard or PCG. National Security Advisor Eduardo Año, who is also NTF-WPS chair, commended the unfailing valor, determination, and professionalism shown by the AFP and PCG personnel. The NTF-WPS also said the rotation and resupply or RORE mission delivered fresh provision supplies to the contingent manning the BRP Sierra Madre despite harassment and interference from the China Coast Guard or CCG and Chinese Maritime Militia or CMM. It added that Filipino supply boats Onaiza May 1 and Onaiza May 2 and their PCG escorts BRP Cabra and BRP Sindangan arrived at their intended destination. The NTF-WPS said Philippine Navy or PN vessels were also on standby during this time. It also maintained routine missions to Philippine outposts on various features in the West Philippine Sea and will continue on a regular basis. Earlier, the AFP said the country has the right to repair and develop the BRP Sierra Madre if needed, reacting to Chinese claims that Filipino supply ships were carrying construction supplies to upgrade or repair the PN ship. This reportedly prompted the CCG and Chinese Maritime Militia vessels to do maneuvers aimed at preventing the Philippines' resupply mission on August 5. The AFP said the Filipino supply boats were only carrying water, food, and other supplies during their RORE mission. AFP spokesperson Colonel Medel Aguilar said the AFP leadership commends its courageous and dedicated personnel aboard the 2 resupply boats who executed the operation with precision. He added that AFP Chief General Romeo Bronner Jr. expressed his deep appreciation for the assistance provided by the PCG to secure the 2 resupply boats.
Dateline Malacañang.
In related news, China's representative to the Philippines on Tuesday said Beijing is ready to accelerate the conclusion of an effective and substantive code of conduct or COC in the South China Sea. Chinese Ambassador Huang Xilian said Beijing and the Association of Southeast Asian Nations or ASEAN have resumed talks in Manila. In a forum in Quezon City, Huang said Beijing also seeks a COC that is anchored on international law, particularly the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea or UNCLOS. The envoy expressed optimism that China and ASEAN countries are capable and wise enough to maintain peace and stability in the South China Sea. The Philippines is hosting the 40th meeting of the Joint Working Group on the implementation of the Declaration on the Conduct of Parties in the South China Sea from August 22 to 24 in Manila. Foreign Affairs spokesperson Maria Teresita Daza said it is the third round of the COC negotiations this year. The first two were in Jakarta last March and in Vietnam last May. Like China, Daza said Manila is committed to the early conclusion of an effective and substantive COC. Bilaterally, Beijing said it wants to conduct dialogue and consultation with the Philippine government to manage the maritime situations as soon as possible. China continues to reject the 2016 arbitral ruling, which explicitly stated that Ayungin Shoal is within the Philippines' 200 nautical mile exclusive economic zone. Ayungin Shoal is part of China's sweeping claims over the resource-rich South China Sea and is covered in its so-called Nine-Dash Line. Meanwhile, Huang welcomed the appointment of former Foreign Affairs Secretary Teodoro Locsin Jr. as the special envoy of the President to China.
Dateline Malacañang.
The Department of Foreign Affairs or DFA confirmed Tuesday the death of a Filipino citizen from the deadly wildfires that razed the coastal town of Lahaina in Maui, Hawaii. The victim was one of the 5 fatalities recently identified by local authorities, the rest of whom are all U.S. citizens. The DFA earlier confirmed that 79-year-old Alfredo Galinato, a U.S. citizen of Filipino descent, also perished from the blaze. DFA Assistant Secretary Paul Raymond Cortez said official data showed the death toll has reached 114, majority of whom are yet to be identified.
So, the chances are na may mga kababayan tayong naapektuhan ng Maui wildfire, very, very high dahil mataas na ho yung population ng ating Filipino community sa Maui. But the probability na Philippine passport holders sila medyo mababa na. Ayan, so nakikiramay po tayo. We continue our prayers para sa mga kababayan po natin na nasa lanta ng tinatawag na nilang fire hurricane.
Search and rescue operations are ongoing in Lahaina while the affected communities get temporary shelter, food, clothing, and some financial assistance from the Hawaii Emergency Management Agency and Federal Emergency Management Agency. The Philippine Consulate General in Honolulu, he said, is also assisting Philippine passport holders rebuild their documentation, specifically birth certificates and passports.
Dateline Malacañang.
The Department of Labor and Employment Regional Office 2 or DOLE 2 will be providing emergency employment with a budget of 82 million pesos to close to 16,000 workers affected by the Super Typhoon Egay in Cagayan Valley. In a statement, Technical Support and Services Division or TSSD Chief Laura Diciano, representing Regional Director Jesus Elpidio Atal Jr., reported on Tuesday that a total of 15,993 affected workers from the region will benefit from the emergency employment. The budget amounting to 82,445,832 pesos will come from the Tulong Panghanap Buhay sa Ating Disadvantaged Displaced Workers or TUPAD funds. Of the over 15,000 beneficiaries, the majority will come from Cagayan with 13,339, followed by Batanes with 1,344, Isabela with 1,208, Nueva Vizcaya with 102, and 4 from Quirino. Diciano said workers, particularly those in the informal sector, will be given emergency employment for 10 to 30 days. Part of their job is to help in clearing the clogging of canals, debris segregation, materials recovery, tree planting, gardening, and other activities needed in the rehabilitation of their communities. Peñano said they conducted a profiling and assessment to determine the eligible beneficiaries who are affected by the calamity. Qualified beneficiaries will receive 420 pesos per day for their social community work.
Dateline Malacañang.
The Office of Civil Defense, or OCD, is inviting the public and you to participate in the third quarter National Simultaneous Earthquake Drill, or NSED, that is scheduled for September 7. In its post on its Facebook page, the OCD on Monday said the event would take place at 2 p.m. It called on the public to participate in the drill, which targets to reduce casualties should a major earthquake strike the country. The first quarter NSED took place on March 9 with a magnitude 7.2 earthquake as the scenario, while the second quarter NSED was conducted on June 8. The OCD earlier reminded the public to observe the following steps or protocols when an earthquake occurs. When inside a building, stay calm and do the duck, cover, and hold. Duck under a strong table and hold on to it. Stay alert for potential threats. Stay away from glass windows, shelves, and heavy objects. After the shaking stops, exit the building and go to the designated evacuation area. When outside, move to an open area. Stay away from buildings, trees, electric posts, and landslide-prone areas. And if in moving vehicle, stop and exit the vehicle. Meanwhile, the OCD reiterated its call to the public and its media partners to support the government's effort to build public awareness on disasters and safety using disaster risk reduction and management, or DRRM, information tools and sources. He added that it is endorsing the following tools, which were developed to help communities understand the threats of hazards and undertake necessary steps and activities to build safety and resilience. The information chart ng mamamahayag tungkol sa mga sakuna at kalamidad that can be downloaded at the OCD website www.ocd.gov.ph.
Dateline Malacañang.
And that concludes today's edition of Dateline Malacañang. For Radyo Pilipinas World Service, this is Win Peñano. Good day.
From the Presidential Palace, Manila, Dateline Malacañang.